Good evening. I'm Ellison Barber in for Tom Llamas. Tonight, the travel meltdown at one of the nation's busiest airports. Is this a hint of what's to come with summer travel just around the corner? Right now, hundreds of flights into and out of Newark delayed. Passengers left waiting for hours due to what the hub says is a combination of problems from staffing shortages to equipment issues and wind conditions. And United Airlines just revealing it had to divert more than 20 flights this morning to area airports. But it's not just Newark. At this hour, Chicago O'Hare and Dallas Fort Worth also seeing some significant backups. Dallas still dealing with the aftermath of severe weather. And we're just learning about an incident aboard a Southwest flight. A passenger's phone igniting just before takeoff at El Paso International yesterday morning. The plane was forced to return to the gate. We're told crews were able to put out the flames and everyone is safe. And with the summer travel season kicking off in just a few weeks, tonight a new warning from the Secretary of Transportation, who says we are starting to see, quote, cracks in the system that uses decades-old technology. NBC's Tom Costello starts off our coverage tonight. Tom, how is the situation at Newark right now?
Yeah, this hour, FAA reports a ground delay still in effect at Newark, and the arrivals delayed by at least 5 hours in some cases. And it's more due to equipment problems and staffing shortages, with one veteran controller telling NBC News, don't fly into Newark, avoid Newark at all costs. At one of America's busiest airports, gridlock. 24 hours of ground stops and delays at Newark International, a critical hub for United. Arriving flights delayed 5 to 12 hours.
All we know that this is an ATC FAA issue.
This red-eye flight from San Francisco to Newark turned around mid-flight. On the West Coast, passengers waiting in long lines.
Yeah, this is rough.
The FAA blames the chaos on equipment issues, runway construction at Newark, and staffing issues at Philadelphia TRACON, which guides aircraft in and out of the airport.
What I think you're seeing is you're starting to see cracks in the system.
American 237.
Still short some 3,000 controllers nationwide, the DOT today unveiled plans to staff up within 3 to 4 years, including recruiting more military controllers, bonuses for academy grads, and veteran controllers who don't leave before mandatory retirement at 56. One Newark controller tells NBC News they lost radars on Monday, radios on Wednesday, and things need to change. It's not a safe situation for the flying public. The FAA and the ATC union insist air travel is safe.
I think this is a pivotal moment of seeing what the stresses and pressures of this career path are.
Stress and strain with summer travel weeks away.
And Tom Costello back with us now in our D.C. newsroom. Tom, we are also learning the Department of Transportation is going to, as you touched on there, unveil plans to upgrade air traffic control. Do we know what those plans are going to look like?
Well, already you've got the House has already, Republicans in the House have already laid out a $15 billion plan to dramatically upgrade the nation's air traffic control infrastructure, buildings, technology, all of the above. This is a bipartisan issue. You've got Democrats and Republicans in full agreement on the need to overhaul ATC nationwide. It will take years, but this really follows the mid-air crash here in Washington. Everybody in the city is all on board, but it's going to take time and a lot of money.
NBC's Tom Costello, thank you.
You bet.
In South Carolina tonight, police apprehending a suspect who they say drove his car into children outside a preschool on Sullivan's Island. The man accused of hitting 3 people before fleeing the scene on foot. Police locking down that island of about 1,800 people for hours, setting up checkpoints and searching with dogs. Police say the suspect was eventually found on a boat. NBC's Aaron Gilchrist now with a breaking update on the case.
Tonight, a South Carolina beach town on lockdown. Police launching a manhunt, including a house-by-house search for this man, Justin Colin Adams, accused of a hit and run.
He was last seen armed with a knife. He's considered armed and dangerous.
They say Adams struck 3 people, including 2 children, with a car outside the Sunrise Presbyterian Church preschool on Sullivan's Island. One child treated at the scene, the other victims rushed to the hospital. Police say the suspect took off on foot. The manhunt unfolding just before 1 in the afternoon. Police dropping a dragnet on the town, putting helicopters and drones in the air, teams of officers knocking on doors. The effort drawing crowds of onlookers and bringing traffic on the island to a crawl.
In addition to doing the searches of the homes, we're also searching every vehicle that is leaving the island, looking for the suspect.
Investigators still trying to determine whether the crash was an accident or deliberate, and delivering this warning.
I do want to say to the residents, please be wary. Please stay inside your house. If you see somebody, do not approach them.
And Aaron joins us now from Atlanta. Aaron, what more can you tell us about the conditions of the people hit?
Well, Ellison, our understanding is that the other child who was hit has been released from the hospital. Police say that the adult who was hit in this incident is in stable condition. They say that she will be fine. As you noted there, this is something that is unusual for such a small town in South Carolina. And so police, as you noted, again, dropped this really large dragnet on that area with multiple agencies coming in to help. The helicopter from the Charleston County Sheriff's Office participating as well. They were able to spot this suspect in a boat there, not far from the scene where this hit and run happened. He is now with investigators being questioned, and charges are pending. Ellison.
Aaron Gilchrist, thank you. We are also following a major shakeup at the White House. President Trump removing his national security advisor, Mike Waltz. Trump saying he'll nominate Waltz for UN ambassador instead. The change coming weeks after Waltz added a reporter to that now infamous Signal group chat. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake has the late details.
Just 102 days into his second term, President Trump with his first senior staff shakeup, removing National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, announcing he's nominating Waltz to become ambassador to the United Nations instead. Posting, Mike Waltz has worked hard to put our nation's interests first. I know he will do the same in his new role. The president tapping Secretary of State Marco Rubio to pick up Waltz's duties on an interim basis. He did not stop to answer questions late tonight.
Mr. President, why now?
Waltz was on Fox News this morning, praising President Trump's efforts to end the war in Ukraine moments before reports he was expected to be pushed out of his White House role.
Only President Trump could have brought both sides together. We were here. We are moving closer and closer.
The decision to reassign Waltz, part of the ongoing fallout after an embarrassing mishap when Waltz mistakenly added a reporter to a group chat on the encrypted app Signal, where sensitive plans about strikes against the Houthis were discussed. Waltz later took responsibility for the episode.
It's embarrassing, yes. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Was there a mistake? Absolutely. We're going to improve it. We're going to fix it.
President Trump publicly supported him.
That man is a very good man right there that you criticize so strongly. He's a very good man, and he will continue to do a good job.
The president at the time telling me in a phone interview he thought Waltz had, quote, learned a lesson. But Waltz remained on shaky ground. When asked about Waltz again last week, the president saying only, quote, Waltz is fine. I mean, he's here. During his first term, President Trump cycled through 4 national security advisors. Tonight, Democrats are calling for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who was also on the Signal chat, to be removed.
The national security advisor is out. He's the first person to leave. He will certainly not be the last.
Tonight, Vice President Vance was asked about the former Green Beret and Florida congressman.
I like Mike. I think he's a great guy. He's got the trust of both me and the president. But we also thought that he'd make a better UN ambassador.
And Garrett joins us now from the White House. Garrett, you mentioned Secretary of State Marco Rubio is taking over for the time being as National Security Advisor, but he already has a number of other jobs in this administration, right?
Yeah, and Ellison, our reporting is that he might have this interim title for quite some time, perhaps even months. But by my count, this is the 4th job Marco Rubio has in this administration. He's the interim NSA. He is, of course, the Secretary of State. He's also the acting director of USAID, the administration that distributes foreign aid, and the acting archivist of the United States. Now, neither of those last 2 roles have a ton of work attached to them, but it does illustrate the point that the president actually made in the Rose Garden today, which is the person he calls upon when something has to get done is Marco Rubio. It's probably part of the reason he was confirmed 99 votes to 0 in the Senate. He has a big portfolio. He has a lot of trust at the White House and on Capitol Hill. And now, going forward for the foreseeable future, he has a ton on his plate, Ellison.
NBC's Garrett Haake at the White House. Thank you. We are tracking dangerous storms on the move tonight. More than 30 million Americans bracing for severe weather from Texas to New York. But first, NBC's Adrian brought us with the flooding that turned deadly.
Days of torrential rainfall and severe storms across the South turning deadly. Authorities say raging floodwaters killed at least 2 people in Oklahoma on Wednesday. One of the victims swept off a roadway, according to the Potawatomi Sheriff's Office. A deputy trying to save him also swept away, needed to be rescued. The Oklahoma Department of Public Safety also saying an 86-year-old was swept away in her vehicle. Some residents forced to evacuate as the floodwaters rose. Powerful thunderstorms and hail pummeling neighboring Texas. Some parts completely overrun by floodwaters. More than 30 million Americans now under the threat of severe weather. From the Texas Panhandle to Pennsylvania, where at least 4 people are dead after severe storms left a trail of destruction, according to police.
The call volume last night was extraordinary during this storm, almost unprecedented.
On Wednesday, Governor Josh Shapiro declared a state of emergency for the county surrounding Pittsburgh. That area seeing heavy rains and wind gusts hitting nearly 90 miles per hour, according to the National Weather Service in Pittsburgh, setting power lines ablaze and leaving tens of thousands of people without power. Adrienne Broadus, NBC News.
And those storms are not over yet, so let's get right to NBC News Boston meteorologist Tevin Wooten with the very latest. Tevin, so many people still in the dark there, and now more dangerous weather is actually making its way east.
Absolutely, Ellison, and that's a great point. A lot of folks are trying to clean up from severe weather, not just today, but also in days past, and they're doing it with the threat of severe weather ongoing right now. We do have a zone across Pennsylvania and Ohio still causing dangerous storms and gusty winds across central PA, but then back down towards the west and southwest. More storms are developing right now. A lot of those storms, again, because of the severe weather threat, are also spawning some tornado warnings about 45 minutes to an hour ago. Now they're down to severe thunderstorm warnings. So still gusty winds, 60 to maybe even 70 miles an hour. And just to the north of Austin near Killeen, we actually have flash flood warnings. That's another concern because these storms are very efficient rainfall producers. They have a lot of moisture to work with out of the northern Gulf of Mexico. So again, today and into tomorrow, it's right around Arkansas, Oklahoma, through the Red River region, where we're tracking 60 to maybe even 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts. And the threat of hailstones, by the way, this is something that we cannot discount. These are not small pea to perhaps diamond size. These are more the size of a golf ball to perhaps a lime. And look at this. This is a large swath across central and southern portions of Oklahoma, and then through central Texas, all the way down across Del Rio and Rock Springs, too, and in and around Austin and Bryant-Denny Stadium, too, there in Bryan, Texas. Now, tomorrow, the zone will actually work its way eastbound with gusty winds and also very heavy rainfall through Ohio, through Pennsylvania. Yet again, a lot of these cities and towns and states that we've been looking at for Monday and Tuesday severe weather threat earlier in the week, they're going to end the work week on the same note with wet weather and very, very strong storms through Saturday and through Sunday, too. And into next week, this is one thing for the eastern seaboard that we really have to watch out for. It is very possible that some of these storms actually produce multiple rounds of rainfall. There's an area of high pressure out over the Atlantic that does not budge in the coming days. So we'll see repeated storms flowing in from the south towards the north and northeast. So tracking that throughout the weekend, tomorrow, a gusty line of storms ahead and along this cold front through Memphis and perhaps Beale Street, Middle Tennessee, and even into Knoxville, too. Then this starts to advance towards the east. We'll see it work its way across the Appalachians through the DMV into Saturday. And then into Sunday, we're also tracking the threat of storms across the northeast into Boston, which has really not had a dry weekend yet all spring, and it doesn't seem like Mother Nature is going to allow that, unfortunately, to happen this weekend as well, with more showers into Sunday. So there's that area of high pressure, that moisture riding along the eastern seaboard will increase the rainfall rate. So some of these storms could put down an inch or perhaps an inch and a half of rainfall in a short amount of time. So that, too, could also lead to a flash flood threat with this slow-moving area of low pressure. It's not just slow-moving, though. It has nowhere to go. This is a blocking area of high pressure that keeps this across the mainland and across the northeast. Unfortunately, again, it's not just this area of low pressure, Ellison. There are more storms waiting in the wings and will start to flow towards the north and east. So it's very likely we get another 3, 4, maybe even 5 inches of rain in the next 6 to 7 days.
Oof. Tevin Wooten, thank you. We appreciate it. And we're back with Top Stories news feed. Illinois State Police giving new details today about the driver who crashed into an after-school program on Monday, killing 4 students. They say a toxicology report for the driver, 44-year-old Marianne Akers, is negative. Investigators are looking into evidence of a possible medical emergency prior to the crash. The 4 girls killed range in age from 7 to 18. No charges have been filed, and the investigation is ongoing. And body camera footage showing the moment a Maryland police officer stopped a woman from allegedly trying to drive through a closed 10K race route. Officers say they became weary of the woman's behavior Sunday morning, just as hundreds gathered for the race about an hour from Washington, D.C. When she made her move toward the runners, a sergeant acted fast, pulling his car in front of her black Jeep and hitting his brakes. The moment the car came to a halt caught on camera. According to court documents, she refused to open her door, so an officer shattered her window to take her into custody. She's facing charges of first-degree assault and disorderly conduct. It's unclear if she has an attorney or has entered a plea. And in California, new video showing some more quick action from a deputy there. Police in Patterson, that's about an hour and a half from San Jose, say an iPhone crash detection alert came in on April 20th. They say a driver had gone through a stop sign, then the car crashed in a field and caught on fire. A deputy putting out the fire and pulling the man from the car. The driver showing signs of alcohol impairment and taken to the hospital. The California Highway Patrol is now investigating the incident. And Luigi Mangione, the suspect accused of shooting and killing the CEO of United Healthcare, will soon be the focus of a new musical. It's called Luigi the Musical, and the hour-long comedy plans to imagine his backstory with real-life cellmates Sam Bankman-Fried and Sean Diddy Combs by his side. The musical is set to hit the stage in San Francisco on June 13th. Shows are already sold out, but according to the website, more performances are already being scheduled. And tonight, corporate America is speaking out about President Trump's tariff policies, with companies across industries saying the levies are raising their cost and lowering demand. The major warning tonight from Apple saying their expenses could rise hundreds of millions. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans has this one.
With dire warnings over President Trump's tariffs, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce today practically begging the White House for tariff relief for small businesses, telling the administration even if it only takes weeks or months to reach agreements, many small businesses will suffer irreparable harm.
These tariffs are just adding uncertainty and complexity at a time when these small businesses just don't have the cash flow to cover it.
The Chamber's CEO says she's speaking up for Main Street companies that don't have the lobbyists and lawyers like big public names. Businesses like Bonnie Bray Flowers in Denver.
Got our roses from Ecuador.
Facing Mother's Day and graduation with new costs they never anticipated.
Everything that is imported from another country. Adding anywhere from 10 to 20% on every one of our invoices.
Big companies, too, with big tariff price tags. GM warning investors of current tariff exposure of $4 to $5 billion. Hershey says tariffs will cost it up to $20 million this quarter. Stanley Black & Decker says it's already raised prices because of tariffs and will raise them again next month. Consumers, meanwhile, growing more cautious. Sales at McDonald's in the U.S. fell 3.6%, the biggest drop since the pandemic. Airlines also seeing passengers pull back. Southwest CEO Bob Jordan.
The demand is way down. Now, a lot of that is, I think, the consumer reaction to the tariffs.
The administration's message tonight, stay calm.
We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to fix this overnight, but I do think uncertainty will go away.
Markets closed higher for the day, and after the bell on an earnings call, Apple CEO Tim Cook publicly addressed the trade war.
Assuming the current global tariff rates, policies, and applications do not change for the balance of the quarter and no new tariffs are added, we estimate the impact to add $900 million to our costs.
Christine Romans joins us now in studio. And Christine, despite a lot of companies, a lot of CEOs having conversations around this, the White House still says these tariffs are going to plan, right?
Yeah, and they point to companies who say even though tariffs are costing them money, they're still going to keep investing in the United States. For example, Mercedes going to add a vehicle production line in Alabama at a plant it has in Alabama. So that could mean more jobs and more production in the U.S. And Kimberly-Clark makes toilet paper and tissues. It says it's going to invest $2 billion in the U.S. and that would be in Warren, Ohio, which would create about 900 jobs. So it's strategic investments like that the White House likes to point out.
NBC's Christine Romans, thank you. Now to power and politics tonight. Former Vice President Kamala Harris making a return to the spotlight, addressing a gala in San Francisco in her first major speech since conceding the election in November. Harris blasting Trump's first 100 days in office and warning a constitutional crisis could be on the horizon.
Instead of an administration working to advance America's highest ideals, we are witnessing the wholesale abandonment of those ideals.
Her speech comes as speculation grows about what her next steps in politics could be, a run for California governor or even the White House again. Joining us now is John Allen, a senior national politics reporter here at NBC News. He is also the co-author of the new book, Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House. Jonathan, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Let's start with the possibility of Harris maybe running for California governor. Gavin Newsom, the incumbent, is term limited, so it is going to be an open seat next year. Did Harris give any insight or indication last night in terms of whether or not she might step in and say, okay, I'm going to run for this?
Yeah, this was not a moment for her to announce a gubernatorial candidacy. That field is filling in fast. You've got Javier Becerra, the former HHS secretary, Katie Porter, Congresswoman from California, some others who have jumped into that race. I think if Harris were to do it, you probably wouldn't hear about that for at least another few months from her. So last night, a speech in California, but not any clues as to whether she's running.
Well, let me ask you about possibly an even bigger office yet again. Let's talk about presidency. The field to lead the Democratic presidential ticket in 2028 is wide open right now. And in this recent poll we have from The Economist and YouGov, Harris is still top of mind for a lot of Democratic voters who put her ahead of other favorites like the current California governor, Gavin Newsom, as well as some other rising Democratic stars like Pete Buttigieg. Based on your reporting, is Harris likely to try to take another swing at the White House come 2028?
Yeah, there's a real chance that she might do that. I've talked to sources who say that it's certainly among the options for her and one that she's very carefully considering. You'd have to if you were her. You get into that race and, you see that polling, but in addition to that, not just the name recognition, she's got a huge national fundraising list. There are any number of Democratic voters that were pleased with the way that she ran her campaign. I think in order to win the primary and win the general election, she'd have to come back at this with a real plan for what kind of change she would deliver for America in 2029. But I would be surprised if she doesn't give very deep thought to that, and I think it's probably more likely than a gubernatorial run.
And Jonathan, before we let you go, Maryland Governor Wes Moore, he's someone that has been seen by some as this young, interesting politician who could potentially rise to the occasion and lead the Democratic Party in a big way moving forward. But he says, as of today, that he is not going to consider or run for the White House in the coming years. What are your sources telling you about why he made that decision?
In 2006, Barack Obama went on Meet the Press and said that he would not run for president or vice president in 2008. And then by 2007, he changed his tune. He jumped into the race. I would not necessarily take Maryland Governor Wes Moore saying that he's not running for president, which, by the way, is an active tense, as him closing on the door on the possibility of deciding to do that later. I think what that does is it takes heat off of him and makes sure that he doesn't peak too early. Surely he could decide not to run, but I wouldn't count him out just because he said he's not running now.
Fascinating stuff. John Allen, thank you.
Thank you.
In Los Angeles, a manhunt underway for 3 suspects wanted for brutally attacking a 61-year-old transgender woman. Police say the men visited the woman at the store she owns multiple times, dragging her out of the door of her shop, sexually assaulting her, attacking, and pepper spraying her. The victim now speaking out.
Tonight, police in Los Angeles searching for not 1, but 3 suspects in an alleged hate crime and sexual assault. It started about a month ago, on April 8th, in LA's Westlake neighborhood.
And I asked, do you need something else? And I start walking around to be close to him and say, can I help you? And he said, he started floating to me. And I say, no, I am sorry, I'm not interested in anything like that.
Sabrina de la Pena, who is transgender, was closing up after working all day at the store she's owned for 27 years.
He threw me in the floor. He pushed me too, and I go in the floor. and start fighting a little bit, and he start touching me, and he start beating me in my head and my whole body.
The 61-year-old got away from him and called police, but in the days after, she and police say the suspect came back multiple times with other men, threatening to kill her while physically attacking her, pepper spraying her, and in one incident, throwing an unknown liquid at the victim while another suspect attempted to tase her. Surveillance video provided to NBC News by De La Peña appears to show a struggle happening in the doorway before the suspect drags De La Peña onto the balcony and throws her to the ground, punching her repeatedly. De La Peña eventually picks up the skateboard they'd used to attack her as the two suspects retreat down the stairs. De La Peña says the primary attacker has come back to her store a total of 4 times since that very first night.
He come back again on Sunday 13, like 2:28 in the morning, but he don't find me. He's watching down my door how to come in.
A spokesperson for the LAPD telling NBC News this remains an active investigation and that they are asking the public to help identify the 3 suspects.
He keep asking me many times, is I be sexually into with those guys? And I say many times, no.
The detective on the case asked you that?
Uh-huh.
NBC News reached out to the LAPD and asked them to respond to those specific allegations, but they have not yet responded to our requests.
I know he doesn't care about me because I'm transgender person.
As the days pass without arrest, De La Peña says her fears only grow.
Now we closing early because I scared he come and killing me. I don't want to die. I got a little girl. No one is protecting me. We are human beings. You know, we are human.
And the LAPD says they believe there may be other unidentified victims out there. Sabrina De La Peña told us she thinks someone in LA will recognize these 3 people, and she is praying they'll come forward and tell police. Now to top stories, Global Watch. In Jerusalem, crews there are finally getting wildfires under control. The main highway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv is also back open, allowing people to return to their homes. The fires began yesterday and quickly spread. The cause is unclear, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says 18 people have been detained on suspicion of arson. A spokesman for the Israeli police say 3 people have been arrested. Officials are also banning anyone from lighting a fire in open spaces until May 7th. London setting a record for the hottest start to May ever. Temperatures reached nearly 85 degrees in the city, marking the warmest day of the year. Citygoers seen flocking to parks and busy streets, basking in the warmth. A high-pressure area blocked over the UK, the unusually high temperatures there. And a grandmother in Germany finding a unique remedy for her back pain, riding roller coasters. 85-year-old Ursula says she discovered at age 72 that riding the coasters relieved her years-long struggle with back pain. Ursula says she struggled with chronic pain since she was 40 and that roller coasters made it disappear. She says she has approval from her doctor and that there's a local fun fair that's let her ride up to 50 times each visit. In Washington today, lawmakers from both sides of the aisle coming together on a topic many Americans actually seem to agree on. The penny's time has come and gone. With 2 new bills now going through Congress to do just that, is it finally time to say goodbye to the lowly penny? Our Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin has this one.
It's the coin almost as old as America itself. The first one, by some accounts, designed by founding father Ben Franklin, although he likely never said that famous phrase, "A penny saved is a penny earned." But after 238 years in circulation, that's a sentiment that no longer rings true.
I don't think I've used a coin, penny, or let alone any other type of coin in a few years at least.
If I get a penny, I either keep it in my pocket or just throw it somewhere in my house.
This week, a bipartisan group of lawmakers is reviving a push to eliminate penny production at a time of rising inflation.
Why do you think people want to get rid of pennies?
Well, I'll tell you, it now costs 4 pennies to make 1 penny. And that, if you want an example of waste, that's it.
It's a move that's been floated by generations of politicians. From then President Obama.
Anytime we're spending more money on something that people don't actually use.
To President Trump.
The penny is gone.
Who in February ordered the Treasury to stop producing new pennies.
In the context of bipartisanship and good stewardship, let's get this done.
The first bill in Congress to eliminate the penny way back in 1989, prompting this NBC News report on its dismal reputation.
When we put a few pennies on the sidewalk, no one bothered to pick them up. Long gone are the days when a penny could buy a jawbreaker, 2 pennies could mail a first-class letter, and 3 pennies buy a newspaper.
The pro-penny lobby, Americans for Common Sense, declined NBC News' request for an interview on this new legislation, but noted eliminating the penny alone will lead to over $200 million in annual losses on nickel production. That's because phasing out the penny means using more nickels, which cost almost 14 cents each to make.
Do you think people will miss pennies at all?
Well, there might be a little affection for all of us who grew up sorting them in jars and putting them in little 50-cent wrappers.
So pinch your pennies while you still can.
I just feel like that's kind of an iconic thing to get rid of. Like, I still pick up heads-up pennies sometimes for good luck.
Before they all finally go to heaven.
There'll be pennies from heaven for you and me.
And Julie Sirkin joins us now from Capitol Hill. Julie, what would this legislation look like in practice for consumers? If you go to buy something that ends in 99 cents, what would happen?
Well, you could say goodbye to 99-cent stores and say hello to dollar stores, because every transaction you would have to round up or down to the nearest 5 cents. Our neighbor to the north, Canada, has already done this, but don't worry, even if this bill passes, you still have a year until from when it's enacted until you say goodbye to your pennies, which means if you have some pennies in your couch cushions, you could still use them. Allison?
Julie Sirkin on Capitol Hill, thank you. And we are back in a moment with the long-delayed release of Alec Baldwin's movie Rust, how critics are reacting and what the director did with that fatal scene. And the race against time to rescue these seals before it's too late. We're with the teams as they save one life at a time. Welcome back. On this May Day, a traditional day of labor demonstrations, thousands turned out nationwide for protests targeting President Trump and his sweeping cuts to the federal workforce. In West Virginia, Jacob Soboroff reports that coal miners could pay the price for those cuts as critical research into black lung hangs in the balance.
For decades, Scott Laney's team made health screenings as convenient as possible for coal miners in Appalachia who have limited access to health care facilities.
We provide x-rays, pulmonary function tests, blood pressure screenings, occupational histories to try to get a sense of what the health of the mining workforce is.
All through NIOSH, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, which focuses on work-related illnesses like black lung in coal miners, a disease that can cause difficulty breathing, a persistent cough, and lead to death. Is black lung today worse than ever?
It's certainly worse than it's been in the last 30 or 40 years. In central Appalachia and among long-tenured coal miners, 1 in 5 miners who are working today, right now, have black lung.
Laney and his team were trying to reverse that trend. But a month ago, he and more than 800 other NIOSH employees were terminated as part of the Trump administration's DOGE cuts. And despite the administration signaling this week their jobs would be reinstated, a memo obtained by NBC News says that reinstatement will only be a temporary arrangement, even as the Trump administration looks to expand coal mining.
My concern is these new people who are going to be going into the mines now have less protection than their grandfathers and their great-grandfathers as a result of this.
These current and retired Appalachia-based coal miners all relied on the program.
As someone who's still working underground, are you worried about what that means for your health?
Absolutely. Without having the protection or the sampling and some of the stuff that NIOSH does, we're not going to be nearly as protected as once we are now.
They just started closing things up and not even looking what they're doing. This needs to be reinstated as quick as possible.
Otherwise, the mines might survive, but not the miners.
Right.
Critical government health protections for coal miners, now anything but certain. Jacob Soboroff, NBC News, Morgantown, West Virginia.
And we are back in just a moment with the new SEAL team, how they're storming the beaches to save the lives of these little seal pups. Next, we take you to the front lines of the race to save gray seals one pup at a time. And as these rescuers tell our Emily Ikeda, it's a mission you too can play a part in.
Nice pink gums, so that's great.
The Mystic Aquarium Animal Rescue Team has never been busier.
So far this season, we've had about 20 entangled seals at this location alone.
So we follow program manager Sarah Callan to Block Island in New England for a closer look at the staggering surge in gray seals entangled in a mess of fishing gear and trash. Now Callan's team racing to remove it. First containing this entangled seal pup so they can cut him free from the netting. An eventual death sentence.
What relief to have this off of its neck.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the same group that brought in this little guy, stranded in city streets in Connecticut. Sadly, Chappie didn't make it with plastic found in his stomach. Research estimates billions of pounds of plastic enter the ocean every year.
The amount of animals that are interacting with human-made products and debris within the first couple months of their life is a bit alarming. It directly relates to the state of the ocean. It's our job to help share that message and educate people on the threats that these animals face.
A fight Mystic isn't giving up on.
Bye. Bye.
Helping seals like this swim towards a healthier horizon.
You get to give an animal a second chance at life that they normally wouldn't have without our intervention. So it's such a special moment.
Emily Ikeda, NBC News.
Awesome. Nice job.
Block Island, Rhode Island.
Now to the film release many thought would never happen. The filming of the movie Rust turned deadly when Alec Baldwin unknowingly fired a live gun during a rehearsal. What followed was a series of court cases, but the film was never shelved, and now it is finally in theaters. The reaction coming in from critics and why the director is now saying he wishes he never made the film. NBC's Dana Griffin joins us now from Los Angeles. Dana, we are talking about a film that is being released 3.5 years after the cinematographer Helena Hutchins was shot and killed. This is something, though, that was part of a legal settlement, right? Her family would benefit from this if it was released, so that's part of why they released it?
Exactly. Even her husband, Matthew Hutchins, is now the executive producer on the film. And we know that proceeds will go to the Hutchins family once the film becomes profitable. You know, this is long awaited. That shooting happened back in October of 2021. You're seeing some clips here from that filming. And, you know, this film is pretty much opening to about 115 small theaters across the country and also on several streaming platforms like Apple TV and Amazon Prime Video. Now, in it, Baldwin, he plays an outlaw, a grisly grandfather who is on the run from the law, fleeing to Mexico. So we're going to see a lot of the insights of that story. Now, we're hearing from a lot of critics who, you know, have kind of tepid reviews about this film. One said that it's okay, it's got a lot of tropes, and it's a decent Western. But again, be mindful that this is also hard for some critics to go really deep on, you know, saying the worst of the worst, because this film is tied in tragic loss. The death of Helena Hutchins. She's the film cinematographer who was shot during a rehearsal when Baldwin took his prop gun out of his holster and a live round happened to be loaded into that weapon. Now, when you talk about the lawsuit and the trials wrapped up in this involved the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. She was a novice armorer, pretty young. One of her second films that she did, she was responsible for checking and loading the weapon, and prosecutors found that she did not do her job. And so she currently is serving an 18-month prison sentence for her role in the shooting. Alec Baldwin, on the other hand, you may remember that emotional moment in court where he was sobbing because the judge ultimately threw out the case because the prosecutor failed to disclose critical evidence in this case. Now, let's talk about Joel Souza. He's the director in this film. He was also shot in the shoulder, the same bullet that killed Helena Hutchins. He told The Hollywood Reporter, talk about the butterfly effect. He says, I wish I never wrote the damn movie. And referencing Baldwin, he went on to say that we're not friends, we're not enemies, there's no relation. Now, it is still unclear exactly how that live ammo wound up on scene, but one thing I can tell you, the silver lining to this is that productions have become safer, many opting to not use real guns, many relying now on CGI. By the way, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who was convicted of involuntary manslaughter last year, she is now serving an 18-month prison sentence. And, you know, despite the tragic backstory and years of legal battles, critics say the opportunity to see Helena's work makes the film so much worth it. And I talked to one film critic. He says that although there is some tragedy in this film, he says, you know, there's some hope there. You know, he said it was a little eerie. The gunshots did feel a little more real. And he believes films like Rust and Crow, where actor Brandon Lee was killed, will always be haunted by what happened on set. Ellison?
NBC's Dana Griffin reporting from L.A. Thank you. And thank you for watching Top Story. I'm Ellison, in for Tom Llamas. Stay there. More news is on the way.
The air with breaking news. We are live tonight from Juarez, Mexico, reporting over the skies of Lahaina here in Florida. The time to evacuate has come and gone. You were seeing people just running for their lives?
People running for their lives.
We've seen this almost unbelievable power struggle. What does this mean for Ukraine? It's the battle off the field that's inspired the world.
Every night, it's your news playlist. Top Story with Tom Llamas. Streaming weeknights at 7 on NBC News Now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.